You're considered to be one of the masters of the take, or non-reaction. Would you define what a take is?
If I can, I'll try to. I don't know whether I can or not. I think a take is a completely, well, it's not completely natural because it's an unnatural thing. It's an exaggeration, I suppose. You have to probably get somebody like Ben Blue. Well, look at Gleason, for example. We'll go back to Oliver Hardy and the way those things worked out. Those things were not thought out in advance, strangely enough. The long stare into the camera that he did, the frustrated, the anxious, you dumbbell, exasperated take. That came out of almost something when they were making a movie. He didn't know what to do. So he turned around and he did this stare into camera. And they found out it served them a great device because it gave pacing to their comedy. He gave the chance for the audience to relish the joke, to laugh, so they didn't overlap into the next laugh. And it became the tie twiddle thing that he did, where he twiddles the tie. Came out of accident. It worked for them. I have found over a period of years that certain things work for me. Maybe just doing a deadpan holding still take, or just an eyebrow thing, or whatever it is. I don't know really how you explain it. Benny, of course, is known for his long pauses and looks. They're all part and parcel of the same thing. Gleason does great reactions in his sketches. They're reminiscent of Oliver Hardy and Edgar Buchanan and all the people who do reactions. In certain instances, I am a reaction comedian because on this kind of a show where I'm playing off of people, very often you get more out of it by your reactions to what they're saying than doing jokes. Because the audience can identify with it. If you've got some nutty dame out there, sometimes you can get more out of it by just doing exasperated reactions or takes. But to explain a take is kind of difficult. Really, I'm not trying to beg the issue. I don't go into and analyze it that much. It's a natural thing that I feel and I do and it's comfortable and it works for me. It might not work for somebody else.
Right. Charlie Chaplin, in a Life magazine story, said, "You cannot be funny without an attitude. Being without an attitude in comedy is like something amiss in one's makeup." John, what exactly is a comic attitude?
Well, you can use different words for it. A form. It takes a certain form. It is your outlook, generally, on things. It's an extension, in a way, of your personality, I think. But I think it has to have discipline. It's another word that sounds corny in comedy, but discipline, I think. And I hate to be patronizing to other comedians, so maybe I won't use any names. There are a couple of fellows working today that are tremendously funny, but they have no discipline. They have great natural ability and talent, but they haven't learned how to confine it. They haven't learned how to edit it. They haven't learned, as far as I'm concerned, what is good and what is bad for them. And they continue sometimes to do certain things that they really shouldn't do. Either somebody can't tell them or they don't realize it themselves. The way you're looking, I would guess you know maybe who I'm talking about. And I don't mean to be patronizing to other guys, but it always amazes me when I see great talent that it doesn't have any form, or it doesn't have any attitude, direction, that is completely undisciplined. They don't know how to edit. They'll go 12 minutes where they should go 6. But don't seem to realize that they've gone 4 minutes too long. I've never understood that. I can usually tell if I'm on too long, or if I should get off, or if I should go to another subject. I think that's something you have to feel. So I think that shapes your attitude. Your attitude is an expression of your relationship to things, and the way they affect you, and the way you talk about them or react to them. And that comes from your own experiences. The only way you're like anybody gets attitudes about anything. It comes out of your experiences and your upbringing, and the way you feel about things. It takes a form.
Is it also, you mentioned before that you don't want to do anything in the club without its having an attitude and a point of view? Can point of view be described as basically the same thing, or an extension of the comic attitude?
Yeah, in a way. Your point of view, you can take a very common situation, and your point of view or your attitude toward it, and what you see in it, may completely different than what somebody else sees in it. They'll comment on it one way. You may take a completely different approach to it. And then the audience sees what you're doing, and you're approaching it in either an underhanded way, or you're looking at it in a roundabout way. And this is where your good humor comes out, I think, is your specific look at something that they haven't thought of.
It's like yesterday, I was taking a sauna bath, and a guy walked in. He walked over to two of his friends, and he told them a joke. And, they giggled, and the other guy said, well, I heard it, and in other words, he heard it, the same joke, but from a different point of view.
That's right. It
is that basically the same idea?
I think so, yeah. Form, attitude, the shape that the comedy takes. Chaplin had form. He had a certain style. Gleason has a certain style and attitude in his comedy. Now, if people ask me what my attitude was, I don't know, because I'm not strictly a sketch comedian. I don't deal in just the one area, nor do I deal in just standing up and telling 120 jokes, a la Henny Youngman. Henny has an attitude in his comedy. It's very definite that you know what you're going to see when you go see Youngman. I like to stay flexible enough to be able to change, because I think attitudes in comedy change. I don't think you can do comedy now that you'd do 20 years ago. People's taste change. If you looked at stuff now that was big in burlesque and on vaudeville, you'd think it was terribly corny. They didn't think it was corny then, but it would be terribly dated now. Smith and Dale would be terribly dated today. And Weber and Fields, we'd think it was corny. At the time, it wasn't. I think you have to change with the attitudes. And television, I think, been responsible for a lot of that. There are not many rubes around anymore. They've all seen it. The guy sitting in Omaha or out on a farm in Nebraska has seen all the comedians. He knows what's going on. So you've got a hipper audience, I think a more sophisticated audience today, because they've seen so much stuff on movies, television, that you have to keep up with that. And I don't think you can just stay in one bag all the time, because it does become dated.